We really got to get happening for the regular cast too, dude.
As soon as Zencaster approves the feature, we're gonna do it.
Well,
there we are.
It's beta, mate.
Wow, I'm doing so much podcasting for my first
Oh,
time.
look at that. We're going to YouTube. I just got a notification on my phone. That's pretty fancy.
Ladies and gentlemen,
what is up?
Hey, everybody.
Chris, dude. You are the tech guru on this thing, dude. We have not had one technical difficulty since we started this broadcast.
That's right.
We've made it 39 seconds.
And Kyle's not watching himself for a change, so this is good. So
I put a shirt on too.
He did. He put his shirt on just for the stream. So he actually recorded tonight's episode topless. So
topless. I lost my AC unit, man. We had talked about, I was listening to our podcast. Of course, at least 30 streams are me personally. We were talking about warranties. I'm living the home warranty thing right now. Like 3 years, stuff dies. I lost my AC blower and a microwave and a washer today. So kudos to me for figuring out warranty stuff.
So let's see, for folks who don't know what's going on right now, the old guy in the green his name's Kyle. No, that's we're here with Signal Noise Podcast staple Hannah Goodine and our new guest of honor, Kyle. Do it again. Introduce your bro, man.
My friend Pavan from SoCal area joining us on the podcast web stream, whatever it is tonight. We just
front
got
house engineer to the stars.
Yeah, man. Like
hey, everybody.
15 years and counting, dude. I'm just making up the 15-year thing, but I think it's pretty close.
I'm pretty sure it's like 15 to 17. Probably 15, 17 years.
We're a little grayer, a little balder, a little older, but
right?
We're the same dudes, right?
Yeah, I feel like my hair now is like the those pillows that like have a picture on one side and they have like just black on the other side.
Yeah.
Like so I think my hair's like that now. I like if I wear it down, it's like no one can. I look 20 years younger. And then if I wear it up, everybody thinks I'm an old man. It's great.
My hair is like my daughter's shirts. It's like the sequins that you do the opposite direction. It's a totally different picture.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if you guys ever see Kyle Trinside in the wild, rub his hair and then rub it back the other way and you can see it change.
Yes. One thing that we didn't touch on the podcast with you, Pavan, I know we've been home for a while and all of us, even my friend Chris Leonard over here to this direction, has become a fairly good cook. You've been posting a lot of pictures of food, dude. I'm digging it.
I've been trying a little bit, I actually got pretty stoked at the beginning of quarantine. I was like, this is my moment. Like shift to be like, like now like the 4-star chef in me comes out, right? And
yes.
After about 3 weeks, I got bored with my own cooking, but it was fun while it lasted. I actually really enjoy my sous vide machine. I don't know if anyone else has a sous vide.
What is that?
It's an immersion circulator. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh, I have heard of that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, dude, you guys need to watch more Iron Chef, dog. It's awesome. It's it like any protein, man. It's perfect for. But even for vegetarians and stuff. I hear it's great at. I haven't tried it yet, but carrots and root vegetables like that. Yeah. But anyways, I've been super stoked on the cooking. I'm about to get back into it.
I think I've been watching more engineers and riggers and sound people and stagehands doing cooking stuff than trainings these 3 months.
Yeah, dude, there's
well, at least the last 2 months. I mean, the first month I was like, I'm gonna train. I'm just gonna cook and drink now.
Yeah.
Dude, have you guys seen the Instagram? I think it was by a bunch of Aussies actually. It's roadies who cook.
No,
dude,
I'm on that one.
Get into it, man. Like there's some I mean, it puts like, I don't know. I know you saw me like post some stuff about like maybe sauteing some vegetables and shit. Yep. But these guys are like I don't know. They're like Michelin star chefs that like have been hiding out as roadies or something. But yeah.
So two things then on the food front. Uncomfortable close-ups of food. Willa Snow, a previous guest and Sound Girl's host for her podcast now, sent me a link to uncomfortable close-ups of food on Facebook. It's amazing. And then I'll have to give a shout out to Alex, who mixes Kill Switch Engage and Steel Panther. That dude is on it on his meat game. Like, he's dry aging and all this crazy stuff.
Nice.
But I can't get enough of that. That's like my Food Network now, is like watching all my friends cook, and I'm like, oh, that's it. I'm doing a brisket this weekend, babe.
Good point. Yeah, good point, man. That's awesome.
So Kyle, I got a question for you. I was thinking about this earlier today. Coming up in the club scene and making your way into some more of the national acts and stuff like that. What do you think? What were some maybe common mistakes you were seeing from maybe some of the local engineers, and or that what separated you to get you up into, say, some more of the national scene?
Yeah, and this was a cool conversation that Michael and I had a couple times about coming up through that scene, and it's not being kind to the house engineer or the house tech. And that was mistake number one. Like, if you come in and just flatten out the PA and act like you own the place and start kicking stuff around and moving things on your own without talking to the house engineer that knows that room, first mistake, hands down. Like, always. And that goes along with the whole demeanor of who you are as a visiting engineer. Like, if you go in and you start moving stuff around and you start banging things and coming in grumpy and being that guy, that goes along with your demeanor immediately. You know, those guys will go back to their little crew room and go, oh man, this guy's a turd, like, immediately. And you're gonna be telling,
sorry to interrupt. They're telling that to their stage manager and their other guys, and that is going to trickle down to the rest of your crew.
Yep. And it's not that engineer sucks, it's that band sucks. And that's bad for the artist. So you have to think who you're working for and how they would come in and want you to present yourself. And that's one of the reasons with Pavan has always been awesome working with him, is he's always willing to jump in. He's always willing to work with the house person. He's always willing. And I did the same thing. So Michael is always right. Hey, probably go in, be cool, introduce yourself to everybody, shake hands, tell them what your gig is, and start laying expectations as the touring guy. Hey, what's up with this room? What's up with the PA? Do you mind if I listen? You know, ask for things instead of just coming in and start taking things. Like, you know, most of these places are held together with duct tape and spit, you know. They just got done doing a guar show last night and the floor's still wet. You know, that kind of thing. You gotta believe the people that are working at the venue that you're working into.
Yeah.
Well, I never liked when people come to your venue and they talk trash about the house rig. Like, I know I work on it every day. I know if it's good or not. You know what I mean? I didn't pay for it. Trust me, I'm aware. So that's one of the things, is that's just not productive. But you know, something that Jim Yak said on the Jim and Carter episode, speak of the devil.
Hey, gentlemen.
Carter Hasselborg, what's up, brother? How we doing?
Hey.
We were just talking about you. Carter was on the show recently with Jim Yakubuski, system engineer for the Peter Frampton tour this last summer, and Carter Celtic Woman before that and all that. And one of the things we were just talking about is what Jim said, which is when he's coming into somebody's house, he said, at least take a listen to the PA and see what they've done with it before you ask them to pull their filters out. You know, just that 2 minutes. He said that someone probably worked pretty hard on that. And, you know, that really sets the tone. Just give it a listen. And on the receiving end of that, you know, it's the house I work at. I know everything about the rig. I know everything about the DSP. I know exactly what's going on with the processing, because I the one who put it all together. So, you know, I'll tell you exactly what I've done to it. I'll tell you exactly how it behaves. I know this room because I mix in this room 200 nights a year. Do you want me to take the filters out? Do you want me to take the delay off? You know, I have 3 presets when you walk in. You can have the plug in and go, or I can strip it back down to nothing. So that's just that dialogue you have to have. But it always works much better if everyone's just coming in and trying to be productive about it, instead of coming in and trying to steamroll me because I'm the local guy and I don't know what I'm doing. You know, that's just not a good way to start the day off. Nice headset, Carter. That thing's killer, man.
Yeah.
I jumped
Yeah, is
on
that
real
a
quick.
gaming?
It's just my gaming headset.
Yeah, nice.
We disrupted Call of Duty for this.
Carter, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks.
Carter, when you go into a large venue like when I came out to you guys, you're at St. Joe's Amphitheater in Syracuse. So you've got to go in, and you might be the first face that the local audio crew sees that day as system engineer. You got to have that dialogue of, you got to make it work with their power and with their delay system and their DSP and their house people. And I mean, I imagine it's sort of the same interaction that I have, right? You want to get off on the right foot with those people, and they know their rig and you don't. So, can you, there's Kemper. Hi, Kemper.
The future has arrived.
Can you speak to that interaction a little bit, Carter?
Yeah, well, I mean, I try to be one of the first people in, period, because a lot of the work I do happens before load in. But yeah, the first thing I try and do is interface with that individual and do exactly what you're saying. Find power, find what they have, what they need from me, where I need to tie it in, if it's stage or front of house. If there's any other feeds, sometimes there's a house video crew that's going to need a different kind of feed from us somehow, and I'll have to figure out how to, usually we have something set up to be able to accommodate those things. But that's kind of it. Just figure out what they've got and be cool about it, and know that I'm not flying another delay system or whatever. So we make it work and smile the whole way through it.
And I was laughing because when I was out there hanging with you guys, the house person who was responsible for their lawn system, he was like, "Yeah, dude, I just put 50 milliseconds delay in our DSP." So he was so proud of that 50 milliseconds, and you were like, "Yeah, man, that's cool. Now I don't have to add as many." That was his whole deal, Like he was so stoked about that, and you were like, "Yeah, that's great, good thinking." But like that's cool, and you know what I mean. I think that was just a really neat moment because that was his big thing for the day was he was gonna show up and tell you, "I saved you some time putting your delay in because I already got 50 milliseconds on it."
So I had the same thing, but on the lower end of the spectrum. This guy was super stoked that he got the new Samson drum mic kit. And
yeah.
and I had to act stoked. I was like, yeah, bro. Killer kit, homie. He's like, "You're gonna use it, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no, that's cool. You could use it for all the openers, man. I got my own. I don't want to mess them up. My guy's a little crazy. I just say whatever." I was like, "Awesome stuff, bro." That's like the lower end of it. The lower end of 50 milliseconds.
I got you know what though? I got the CAD drum kit that like is everybody's first drum mic kit. That thing is good, dude, for $90 or whatever it costs. Like I still got it in my basement, man. That thing comes out at festivals and stuff. Gets the job done. And I don't care if it gets rained on, if the guy cracks a stick on it, like I'm good. You wreck it. That's great.
That's a good topic right now. We should go through everybody and mention the crappy mic that we still own that we'll still revert to when it's there. It just happens.
Yeah, dude. I got a box full of them right here behind me. But yeah.
What's your go-to drum mics?
We're not talking crappy, right? So at this point,
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Okay, so I've actually been trying to round out my drum mic package. So like, big proponent of the Telefunken SH series or whatever. So I've got right now 3 81s SH first. I don't know, like a lot of the drum kits that I've been coming up on have 3 snares. So I'm imagining those are going to be my 3 snare bottoms. I'm about to get 3 80s SM8 or sorry the Telefunken M80s for snare top, and then I'm in an ideal world I would get some DPA 4099s for toms. I just got the dude, I'm a big fan of Dave Royer. Like I have a couple of Royers and stuff. I don't bring them out that much, but like I just got the Mojave Audio, the 201s, because like Pooch and Raywell were talking about them. I'm like, they were on sale. They were on sale, dog. They were on sale at Sweetwater. Yeah. Like,
because someone at Sweetwater was watching that video and they were like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm gonna put these things on sale.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, like I kept my eye on like a pair that were on sale up in North Hollywood and Burbank. And then that sale happened and I was like, for $50 more, I could get my own, like brand new. That's not very environmentally friendly, but I'm still going to do it. And yeah.
I feel better now that Carter and Hannah are here because now we're half system techs, so now we can overthrow because usually I have to be quiet. But I'll do I have a couple of really nice ICEMCon measurement mics that are like $370 each, and
I got one of those
for my when someone's looking. Because here's the thing about being a system tech:
someone's looking.
When you pull out your measurement mic, they have made a judgment about your ability as a system tech based on what mic you pull out. That's a thing, right? So, but I also have a bunch of crappy measurement mics because I sort of like the educator in me. I think it's important for people to see that you don't need to go out and buy $5,000 worth of stuff to go out and start doing this, right? My first measurement mic was the USB mic that came with Rock Band 2. I plugged that shit into my laptop and I booted up Roomy Key Wizard and I started measuring subs, man. And guess what? It works. So I don't like the gatekeeping aspect of like you need 8 matched mics that are $2,000 each. No, you don't. So I go and I do a lot of work with those $60, $70, the ECM 8000s and the TM1s and those mics that cost $100. And also because they're fine, they're flat within a dB up to 16K, and like that I'm good with that. So that's the stuff there. If it's going to be in direct sunlight for 5 hours, or if I think someone's going to run it over with a forklift, then I'm not going to cry about it. So those are there's my crappy mic contribution. Carter's got his awesome headset mic. I guess I've heard rumors he tunes PAs with that thing.
Turtle Beach, bro.
Yeah. No, I've got a Smaart 420.
Well, you got the RTA 420?
Yeah, I got that 420, and then I have the ICEMCon one too. And like I don't know, like I remember in because I took the Smaart class in Vegas once, and yeah, man, I remember like they were like, yo, for you can pay more and get a little bit more accuracy, but this is how much accuracy. And they, Jamie showed us in the course, and like, ooh, I will save that $600. And yeah.
Ryan John's here.
Yeah, Ryan John's here.
Yeah, dude.
He says "pava" like that. That's what he says. With a bunch of A's. So
wait, I can't. Should I be like monitoring us on Facebook so I can see the comments?
If you can, if you want. Where's Ryan? Ryan, I'm going to text you the link, man. Or text Ryan the link. What happened to Chris? He released himself? He's gone.
He's gone. How does Ryan?
Did Chris just quit the show?
I think he went backstage.
I'm here.
Okay. It's like, guys, we need a new co-host, quick. And he better be good at tech because I don't know how to do any of that stuff that he does. Yeah, I was thinking that today. I'm like, if something ever happened to Chris, Kyle and I would be stuck, man. We don't know how to do these cool graphics, all that stuff. It's just I'm glad you're here, Chris.
Barely, you have to remind me the same time every podcast.
I know.
I'm pretty bad at life right now.
Oh,
I'm barely hanging on as a loose video engineer. So at the corporate production company that I work for, our director of video at the top of COVID left, not because of COVID reasons, and so I've had to assume a lot of the video roles and stuff. So I've learned way more about video in the last 3-4 months than I've ever wanted to. So
we gave him we blackballed him in our text thread. We didn't let him talk to anybody. So actually, Carter mentioned something to me yesterday that I think is a good topic to hit on too. Owning your own console, investing in your own mixer for freelance people. Pros and cons. I know, Kyle, you own a console. I own a handful of consoles, and so on the one hand, you've got a significant investment up front, and I'm not a rental company, so it's not earning me money in that sense. For me, the benefit was twofold. One, that I work in a lot of venues where I don't know what I'm walking into, and some of them there's the stuff's older than me or it's not working. So it takes a lot of that anxiety off the table, and I know that I will at minimum have the tools I need to do my job. But also when you own a console that you're comfortable on. You work quicker. I'm faster. I'm more accurate. And so I think that sort of pays off in the sense that I'm a freelancer and I trade on my name and I'm only as good as my last gig. And so I feel like getting better results faster, more consistently is worth making that investment. And I don't think it's worth that investment for everyone, but to me, those were the factors why I decided to take the plunge. So I think that's kind of a good conversation to have, right? If people are
I have
thinking
a
about
question
that.
then. So
Yeah.
what is the results of your gear taking a shit opposed to a rental company's gear taking a shit? Because that seems to be the engineer's go-to. Oh, it was so-and-so's stuff. Like, sorry about that. It took a dump during the show. But if the artist or the management company knows that they're paying for you to bring your stuff out, you know, how is the reaction different if your console takes a dump opposed to Claire Rat Sound
Yeah.
Image?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, that's the thing. I if my Pro 1 dies, I don't have 4 more in the warehouse, right? So unlike a rental company where they stock a bunch of these things, I only have one. I take very good care of it. I do, you know, my maintenance and I make sure that it doesn't get beat up, but you know, things break. One of the things that Pooch says on the video with Raybold is if he's renting his consoles to the tour, he's got an arrangement with the production company who's handling the tour that they will treat that console as their own. If it fails, they'll supply the backup and stuff. And that's sort of a win-win. But yeah, I mean, Kyle, I think that's a really important point. This idea of, okay, now you're responsible for maintaining this thing. And you know, the expenses that go along with that. And that's absolutely true. And that may bridge over into something that someone doesn't want to deal with for that. So I think, you know, again, it goes out just enough times a year for me that it's worth it because I can show to me, being able to take the lid off in my house and build a show file when I'm sitting at the console for a gig I know I have coming up and save that hour when I get there on the day when I can just roll my console in and turn it on and I'm ready to go. That is a huge thing for me. So there's a lot of benefits for me that are not directly financial. So if I were looking at the cost benefit analysis of, is this console making me more money? No, not directly, not at all. You know, can I charge more to the client because I brought a Pro 1 instead of an X32? No, I can't. They don't care. They just want good results, right? But in the sense that it allows me to do my job better and quicker with more precision, I think those are the things that make the phone ring. That's sort of my stance on it.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat, dude. Like I don't own a console, but I've been like I've been interested in looking into getting one. I think I was even texting Ryan John about this, like when I was like, you know, super hard on for it, but it did concern me is like, you know, okay, this is on you now. And actually seeing that that webinar with Pooch and Raybold, like I was like, oh, like I just have to like frame this properly with the people that I'm working with. Like, you know, I usually rent through Claire, and like and I'm still not like super on owning a console per se, but like maybe I don't know. Like I am going to, like, you know, I used to travel with a bunch of outboard gear, and I'm probably going to unretire all that outboard gear and build a rack just to.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I used to just like, you know, like, okay, I have some C2s that I like to use. I'll just like rent those from Claire or whatever. But like, you know, I don't know. What's happening to us right now is like so gnarly that like I think that when we get back, I would like to have an additional revenue stream, and if I can, like, you know, put, you know, the stuff just, it's actually sitting right in front of me, and if it's just sitting here, like, I mean, I should probably put it to work and like try and get it to you know, give me some revenue or whatever, you know. But yeah,
well, that's an important. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, like I talked to you know, the people that I usually rent from, and I just cleared it with them too. And I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this, like, you know, making an outboard gear rack. What do you guys think? Like, I mean, I won't do it if this is like biting into too much of your cookie, because like I don't want to ruin that, you know. But there's some specific things that I don't think it's worth it. Like, you know, like I have a metric halo. I can't imagine someone from a PA company, you know, they probably would, but like I don't see how they would like get benefit out of like buying just one for my tour, and like, you know, like when I have one already and I just want to use it, you know.
What about plugin side though? I mean, I know early on before Waves, especially back in the iLock days, the Avid and stuff like that. I mean, people, not every rental company in your local one-off cities would have the full gamut of plugins and stuff. So people would invest in their own iLocks and stuff. And nowadays, the big thing obviously be like Wave servers and kind of owning your own thing there. But there's still like, man, like I had a freelancer mention to me, he was like, I'm in the corporate market, right? And so he's like, man, I want to build my own Wave server. It'd be nice to have all these things. He's like, but then at the same time, there was a twofold conversation. Him and I going, okay, well, who's responsible if his Wave server goes down when he's plugged into my gear that I've hired him on as a freelancer on my show, right? And so like, there's a little bit of liability there. Like, am I in trouble because I allowed my freelancer to do that? Or, can he take responsibility? I mean, if we lose this quote unquote Fortune 500 pharmaceutical client because his Wave server went down, whose problem is that? That's my problem, not his problem.
Right.
Yeah.
So it just goes back to that owning gear, not owning gear, and when's the right time to use your tools and stuff. So,
well, I think the difference in level here is an important distinction too. Keith says in our comments on Facebook, he says, actually, my X32 rack paid for itself in 30 days. Just doing local stuff also got me a studio session. So owning my own console, even though it's an X32, is definitely worth the small investment. Yeah, and I think that's part of the consideration here, because I mean, Pavan, what you're talking about is if it's either my SD9 or someone else's SD9, right? Right. Whereas on a lot of levels, particularly for freelancers, on local weekend warriors, regional people, it's either my X32 or whatever broken thing the venue happens to have, right? So I think that's a very different consideration, where if it's between having a tool and not having the tool versus who's supplying the tool, in terms of what, so I recently picked up an SQ5, which is a great little console, and I'm super happy with it. For a couple of gigs a year when I get called in to do some talking head thing, and the company that brings the stuff thinks that, well, it's only one microphone, it's a podium, and I get that little Alesis analog thing that's, it's got 2 preamps, and I'm like, yeah, but I have a condenser mic, and like I need a little more firepower than that, because I think it's, to someone who's not an audio engineer, they're like, you only have one mic, you don't need a big console, but in order to make that sound good, I need more than high and low shelf on an input. So I bought that so I would have something that's really small but has that full tool set when I need to do something like that. Like the mayor's going to speak. I have an elected official up there. I want to make sure that people can hear what she's saying, and it's not, there's not feedback the whole time. That's important stuff. So that was my angle for, how do I justify to myself? Well, you already own a console. How do you buy another console? And it was stuff like that. And, there are gigs where as small as something like a Pro 1 or an X32 is, they're still going to say, no, you can't wheel that thing in here. Right. And I have 2 square feet of table space. And so this was one of those things where it's like, okay, in this situation, I have one input, but I still have a tool set, and I have everything I need to make this show sound good, because I can't go around and tap everyone else on the shoulder and say, hey, the reason it doesn't sound good is because they didn't give me the right stuff. It's my fault, right? Like Chris was talking about it, whether or not it's my fault, it's my fault. So I have to answer for it. So that was one of those things that, again, does it directly make me more money? Am I renting it? Not usually, but it sort of preserves my professional reputation and allows me to get good results. And I think those things that make the phone ring again are worth looking at. So there's my 2 cents.
Carter, as a system tech, how does that world work in terms of your Smaart license, your microphone, your interface? How much of that is your gear versus, and maybe not just you? I don't know if you know what other system techs it's like in like the touring market. How does that work?
Well, I still have a Smaart 5 license because I haven't needed to update it. Because most of the companies that I tour with provide the Smaart rig all the way to the mics. And as far as the mics go, because of that, I still only own the DBX, little $100 ones, which work fine for anything that's small enough where it's not being provided. But I did, I guess last year, invest in my own wireless because that was something that was kind of hard to get someone to provide, and it really helped with time, not having to run cable into a lawn or over the side thing or especially I bought it when I was doing a theater tour. And so just getting a cable from a third balcony down to front of house is, it takes half an hour just to get it done, and then running back and forth and taking it to another balcony when, it's time. So that's really the major piece that I own. And everything else, is provided by a company. And I know other guys that have much larger personal rigs that they've actually been able to build and rent back to the tours for their I think one of my buddies even has some front end processing that he brings with him that he wants to have on everything that he does. And I know I know he has been able to rent it, and sometimes it's just he has it because that's what he wants, and it's not going to be provided all the time. And so it's kind of, like Michael was saying about the console, is having the tools that you need that are going to make you comfortable and quick to get your job done. They're worth it.
I think that's a great point, Card. I mean, I own. I started off with a basic Ashley Protea 4x8 DSP, nice. And that's Hannah's got that as my hand-me-down now, and I graduated to a Symmetrix Prism. But again, it's about that 4x8. Ashley has everything you need to walk into a club and wrangle a shitty PA in a submission. You know what I mean? And it's one of the lot of those gigs are like, if you don't have that, you're hurting. When you need that stuff, you really need it. And it's a great unit because you can do everything from the front panel. So you don't have to start, linking up software and all that stuff. And I think it goes back to there's never enough time to tune the system, right? We're always kind of pressured to get through that part of the day. So I think it comes right back to, I have what I need to get in there and do this job quickly. And the sooner I can go to the mix engineer and say, here you go, it's all yours, start her up. That is the kind of stuff that people call you back.
Yeah.
I find it very interesting. I think I feel like I see it more in the country world where artists own their own gear. In fact, we have, Wayne Pauley's episode coming out, next week, and and they own their own Paragon 2 console, right? And Outboard gear.
Wow.
And that's it. I find there's a handful of other artists who have chosen to, actually invest in their own gear. And I can imagine there's an investment that they would save on not hiring out, a PA company or whatever. But then there's the whole maintenance aspect to it too, and you don't maybe necessarily get the newest and latest and greatest toys. And maybe that's okay. It's interesting the trade-offs that people choose, between those two different worlds. So.
Yeah, I think Wayne might actually own that Paragon himself, because I toured with him in 2016, and I think he owned a Paragon. I think he got the Paragon 2 since then. It'll probably, I don't know if he'll talk about it in the episode or not, but yeah, we spent a lot of time with that desk, the first one that he had. So I sent him a picture from underneath it not too long ago, just letting him know I missed it.
I believe he sold it to the Libres tour last time I talked to him.
Oh, did he?
But
okay.
I don't know for sure, but I know that he also carries a venue as well for backup when stuff
okay.
doesn't go right. But
I was going to ask, for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure, at least in the episode we talked, I'm pretty sure Lee Bryce owns, maybe, and we didn't talk about whether he had sold it to him or not. We did talk about specifically with the Paragon 2. There's some tricks to restarting channels if the channel goes down, you crank on the head amp and it re-excites the channel and stuff like that. So it's fun analog stuff.
Yeah, I heard a story about ribbon connectors. You have to push them back in every time it comes off the truck because they'll rattle out, or I don't know. It's just stuff like that. Yeah.
So speaking of analog consoles, I heard not really a joke, a story, but it's kind of funny of a monitor guy who had an issue on a show where an artist was complaining about bass being in the monitors and turn it down, turn it no, I'm telling you, there's no bass in the monitor. And finally, I don't recommend this, and not many people could do this anymore, but the monitor engineer got pissed off enough. He's like, you know what, screw it. And back when you could actually unscrew a channel strip, he's like, screw it. He unscrewed the channel strip, took the channel strip out of the console, threw it out onto the stage. It was like, there was no effing bass in your channel. Here's the channel, and throws it out onto the stage.
Holy crap.
Yeah, that is the ultimate way to go out. I'll remember that if I ever need to exit in a grand fashion.
I did.
Sure it's analog.
actually did that last year at a festival. It was like the crappiest festival I've ever worked on, but it was like dangerous to the point that it's just like, you're like, I hope I don't get killed by dangerous rigging in the next 3 days. It was that bad of a show, right?
Wow.
I'll show you guys some pictures later. It was brutal, but the PA, the dude built his own PA, right? Just a bunch of like JBL, like 5-way things, and that were like 110 degrees wide, but that he had displayed at 30 degrees. So up front, it was just like comb filter central. The thing was so wide that if you were downstage, if you're on like this 7, the feet down at the edge of the stage, you were just getting all sorts of high frequency crap. And then it was coming back off the scrim. So it was crazy down there. So everyone thought I had my side fills because I was mixing monitors. God help me. I had these big side fills up there that I turned off immediately because the PA was so ridiculous on the deck. And this one guitar player was like, dude, I thought I told you to take me out of that side fill. I'm like, bro, the side fill's literally muted. Like the amp's not even on it. He kept yelling at me for it. So I finally went over and I just pulled the NL4 out of the top of the side fill and I dropped it on the deck and just walked away. And he didn't talk to me again after this.
The same guy, and I don't remember who told me that story or the artist. It doesn't really matter. And another story I heard, and I don't know if it's the same engineer or not, but and had to do with a bass again. I don't know, both was with bass. And bass player's complaining. He gets so pissed off that he takes his bass guitar and jams it into the wedge, right? And his bass guitar is sticking out of the wedge. It must have been doing rehearsal or sound check, and so the monitor engineer comes over here and he's like, I see what the problem is here, and he's like, what? He's like, there's too much bass in your wedge.
You get it. I made it funny.
Oh my gosh,
that's awesome.
I wish I knew who the monitor engineers were and the artists, but it doesn't really matter. But it's still there's stories that have just stuck with me.
I kind of want to get back to this Smaart version 5 thing. Like this is I actually that software is like almost as old as me, I think. And I actually last time I was down at the shop, I was like, I've never used version 5 or version 6, and Jamie's like, here, and he just gives me the demo, and it's so old I couldn't get it to run on my computer.
It's
and I'm
funny.
like, I am
our background is almost like the black marble that's within within Smaart 5.
And Jamie so badly wants that to come back. Like he really, really wants to be able to reskin and Johnny's like, no, we're not doing that. But
I gotta say, it was pretty smart, but it was pretty sharp. Like I've only seen it at one venue in Japan. I believe it's in Osaka. It might be Zepp, but they're still running Smaart 5 over there.
That's hilarious. And I saw a YouTube tutorial the other day. Some dude was talking about measuring stuff in Smaart 5. I watched the whole thing. I was like, this is pretty wild.
First Smaart class I had was with Jamie in Smaart 5. That was the first Smaart class I took.
That's wild.
A long time ago.
So I haven't used it. So I'm super into that whole thing. That's pretty cool. Because when I couldn't get to run, I'm like, I am not calling our tech support people and making them walk me through that. Like, what an absolute waste of their time to do that. So
Carter, do you use 5 on a regular basis?
No, not well. It's a backup rig. I actually have it running on a netbook that still runs XP. And when I bought that, that's its only purpose.
Yeah.
So it's never been online. That's it. It runs Smaart and that's it. But it's tiny, so I can take my sound devices the microphone, and throw it in the backpack and fly wherever with it. And it's nice and neat. But if I bring my larger rig, it's a rack and a thing, and I don't want to fly with it if I don't have to. So yeah, it still works if I've got something small to do, or doing a little one day retune at a church or something like that. It's all the tools I need.
When that thing dies, send it to us, because we were thinking of putting, in Beauty and the Beast when they got the rose under the glass globe, we want to do like the Smaart versions past, like make a little museum in the office, and we'll put your netbook under display, man.
Nice. All right.
You can sign it.
And you can put it right under Jimmy Akabusi's picture, which is hanging in the rational.
That's true. We do. We have a Jimmy Ak. Yeah.
Nice.
I took a picture of your shoulder might be in it, Carter. I took a picture of Jim doing his thing.
Yes.
And it's in our training room. It's right behind Jamie's head when he's talking on the webinars. So
I have a very, very famous shoulder. It gets
you do. You're actually your right ear was in Lifestyle International this month. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
So Pavan, I'm curious. So you mentioned, for anybody who's watching, we actually just recorded an episode of Pavan, which will be out, in about 2 weeks or so. What you said you've listened to a bunch. I'm curious, what's been maybe some of your favorite episodes, or something you've learned, a nugget you've learned from what you've been listening to?
Gosh.
Man, you put him on the spot. Now everyone's going to find out that he doesn't actually listen to the show.
I've listened to quite a few of them. I haven't listened to like all of them, but I'm gonna say percentage wise, it's probably like a good 85% of them. I really enjoyed the Ryan John one because like he clued us in on to that Telefunken site, which has a bunch of I know that you where's Ryan? Where is he? I thought he was coming.
I texted him. He said he's busy. Yeah, I texted him. He's like, I'm busy. Like, come on, man, you're not busy.
Yeah, all right.
Designing consoles or something. I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, right. He's designing some new feature for the Avid, like crazy. But like, but yeah, dude, like, I really do want to get in on that thing that you guys were doing, like where you guys were making. Yeah, dude, like that sounds sick. I just need a console and apparently like 5 computers so that we can record it. But yeah, like I think that's fantastic and that's rad. That was a cool one. I really like the Rabel one because like, man, he's like, I don't know, he's like, he's got so many great ideas about things and like and it's not in a he just seems like such a cool guy. Like, I don't know, like that one was great. The one keep on forgetting your name. The one with
Carter and Jim. Oh, sorry.
Okay, no, the Jim Yakubuski one was great. Actually, like that. And Carter, yeah, and I think Carter. Yeah, and Carter. Yeah, because there were two dudes on that. Yeah, and hey, you're probably one of them. Yeah, dude, like that one was great because like I really do enjoy the idea, like I was saying about transfer, changing or taking your transfer function from what you're doing a flatter frequencies response on your PAs, because like, man, that has been like one of the things that I every time I listen to one of those, I'm like, yeah, I kind of am like embarrassed about my 2 tracks, like no lie. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna give this to you, but I'm also gonna like give you I'm gonna spew a bunch of like excuses at you about why it sounds this way, and like just because like it's like I'll listen to like honest. Okay, I think this came from like where people, engineers like me and Kyle came from. We came in from like doing punk rock clubs where like you were lucky to get the SPL that you got out of the system. Dare you take any of that away? I dare you to take any of that away, and like so subtractive EQ from a system was like like, man, if you're taking it out of the low end, you're just like you're asking for a shitty mix, like, and not not now we know that like that's not necessarily true. You could like you could add that low end back in at the console level, but like, I mean, when you're walking into like a club that has like maybe an Allen Heath like console and things like that, and like you don't have like all these great plugins that you have now, like adding that low end into a system is daunting, because like, man, you do it in a shitty way and it's just going to be shitty, leaving it in like where I don't know that but yeah, the Yakubuski ones were great, and like and Carter what else? Like, yeah, I'm trying to think. You guys kind of put me on the spot.
Sorry, I had a different question.
No, don't you guys? That was Chris. That was all Chris. Sorry, I take no responsibility for that.
Sorry, Michael and Kyle put me on the spot all the time, so I gotta put somebody else.
Yeah,
you're a co-host. That's part of the job, man.
So, Pava, do you how about on your, speaking of like your 2-track that you end up handing to people, and people are so used to hearing a polished master track, do you ever do any compression either on your 2-track record or on your main mix going out to the PA to kind of squash that a little bit at all, especially with this pop artist where people are coming to these shows expecting to hear the album pretty much and feel that? Is that something you ever do, or you still keep it pretty dynamic and open?
I definitely like we'll take it through like I like to think of it as a tasteful like element of compression. I'm a big proponent of the Allen Smart C2 as like my finishing thing. It's like I don't know if you guys are probably familiar, but like it's like an SSL compressor. But yeah, man, like I was on a punk rock tour pop punk tour where like the headliner, we were all on the same console, we were all on a 5D, and the headliner was on 5D, same 5D, but he had an Allen Smart inline, not inserted, and he was wasting all the openers every single night, even though I watched very closely, like our meters on the output were like the same, but for some reason it just like, sounded like just miles above like anything that we could accomplish, the hardest that we would try, the openers. Me and the other openers were friends and stuff, and we were just like, what's going on? And I got the nerve to ask the system tech one day, and he like shined his flashlight on this gray carpeted rack in the corner. It wasn't even at the mix position, it was like all in the corner, and it had an Allen Smart C2 in it, and he's like, yo, that right there. And and the next night I came over and I saw how hard he was hitting it, and it was like 6-7 dB of compression with the makeup gain just cranked. And he's like, yeah, you just turn that makeup knob up until the amplifiers tell you no, and you're good. Like, so like, I don't know, like it was those kinds of things that like stuck with me for a long time, and I think I got used to those sounds. And after that tour, yeah, I ran out and bought one. So like, I don't know,
I think that's an interesting discussion, because the master bus compressor idea is something that I've always been like, man, I should really be doing that. And then I'll try it and I'll like tweak something and I'll get to the point where I'm like, okay. And then I always go back 3 shows later and take it off, and I'm like, it sounds better again. Like I never end up liking it compared to not having it there,
I think you have to find the right one. And for me, like doing it analog, I mean, there was no like, doing it with a plugin, you can debate all day long. Like, does the Waves SSL sound like the hardware unit? Does the, UA one, like, I'm sure the UA one sounds fantastic. I haven't really gotten into their stuff, but like, it's on my list. Right. But like, you could debate all day long with like plugin stuff and be like, does it really sound like the original? But you get like a hardware unit in there. And I feel like, if it's a reputable hardware unit that like, I mean, it doesn't have to be an Allen Smart for me. Like, I mean, it has to be something that gives me that glue. And so far, I just haven't found anything that does like that. It's rare for me to find compression unit or compressors that I can like lay into and really enjoy it. That's why I have like distressors, and like why I have the Allen Smarts, because I really feel like I can lay into them and they get better. I haven't found that with like a lot of like the plugins, and like I wouldn't try the same things that I try on the Allen Smart with like the SSL like Waves thing.
Yeah. For me, it's the loss of transients that I just find annoying. What I'm doing right now, and given it's an act that I've been mixing for a long time and I've had years to sort of improve the show file incrementally, so it's sort of at that point where you make little tiny changes and you hear them, you know what I mean? But I've got on the Pro series, there's a 3-band comp that you can put in the effects track, and I've bypassed low and high. And the mid band's tuned to like, it's like 150 to 1K. So it's just that sort of low mid region. And it's just doing like 2 dB when they really get going. And that's it. And I that was the first time I ever put something on master bus. And I'm like, okay, I actually like that better. Just kind of glued it up down there, but it didn't kill the transients on top. So, but I want to actually with this band, when you were talking about, Rabel, because he is so cool. I feel bad for Rabel, for Pooch, and for Yak, and for Ryan, because I mix a local rock cover band, right? It's just a bunch of engineers, and they go design satellites and stuff all day for the government, and then they come on Tuesday nights and they all get together and they all play classic rock covers, and I mix them, and it's a blast, right? But it's a local cover band. So I send my board tapes to Yak and to Pooch and to Ryan, like every 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, how about this? And they'll be like, okay, go try that. Because I'm like, this pandemic for me has been like, I'm going to step up my mixing game, because for too long, I'm done saying I mix like a system tech. I want to like actually, start to mix. And be proud of what I'm getting. So I keep sending these guys these board tapes, and they're just super, super generous. And Ryan will send me like, 4 paragraphs, like super well thought out.
That's so sick.
it's great, and it's so cool. And Yak will call me up, and Pooch sends me this. And Raybold is so busy. I always feel like, I feel so bad that I'm like, listen to my, local cover band playing, playing Zeppelin covers, right? And then so like I'll send it to him, and I didn't hear nothing. And like five days later, I get this text. He's like, sounds real good, man. I was like, yeah, like it's like it made my night. Like 3 words from Raybold. I'm like, Raybold likes my board mix, and
that's because him and Pooch sitting there 24 hours a day, sitting on doing his episodes. So yeah,
and that's one of those things where you're like, hey mom, guess what Chris Raybold said? They're just like, who's Chris Raybold? You know what I mean? Like one of those things you can't tell anybody because no one gets it. No, it's big thank you to those guys for enduring that. And Poppin, you're gonna be on that email too now. You're starting to get assaulted with my local band board mixes.
Lay it on me. I'm gonna send you mine then too, like for sure.
Hit me up, brother. Let's do it. and I want to touch on that too, because that was something Hannah said to me. She's like, I can't believe you're sending this to those guys. Like, why not? Like, do it. Like, Pooch isn't going to bed at night going like, man, Mike's mix was so bad, right? Like, he's just not.
No, you know what? He's probably thinking like, oh, I'm so glad I got to help somebody out. That's awesome.
Right. And I think like, take that shot, because the worst case is that you don't hear back, right? And so nothing's changed, but you have a great opportunity to get some of the best ears on the industry and to improve. And sometimes it's a little thing, like Jim was like, just use a little bit longer reverb, and it like blew it. I mean, Hannah, you heard the before and after on the mixes where it was night and day, and I think I added 400 mils to my vocal reverb, and that was it. And so those little tweaks are game changers for me. And so it was like, why not like send those guys and get that input? And I mean, I'm working on a system design. I think I've called poor Carter 3 times now and asked him super specific questions about melody boxes, because he knows the box and I don't know the box. So like call people, ask them questions, and learn stuff, man. I mean, why not? Don't let your fear of I don't even know what interfere with getting some knowledge dropped on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Like even when I was hunting for work, one of my friends like dropped me, like, he was a close friend of mine. He dropped me his email list. He's a record label guy, and he's like, here's a bunch of managers I know, and like, he definitely was probably not supposed to give me that, but he did, and like, and I cold emailed a bunch of like of managers, and you would be surprised at the ones that like that hit me back. Just not even to say, oh yeah, we're looking for a guy. None of them said that, but a lot of them said like, yo, thanks for the email, like keep in touch, bro. Like like I was like, you managed The Cure, and like like I mean at the time, like dudes were like, that's not the band that I was hitting him up for, but like I was like, I've seen your roster, I know who you work for and stuff. Like, I mean, that's crazy that you're like, I don't know, like I feel like I'm just trying to say, like, people are a lot more accessible than you think they are usually, so
especially in this field. That's one of the greatest things about it is, I mean, you can go right to, I mean, for a system tech, when I started really digging into it, the fact that you could email Bob McCarthy or Pat Brown or Jamie Anderson and they would write you back is, I mean, there aren't a lot of fields where that's true, where you can go to the top dogs in the fields and get them on the phone and ask them questions. And I think that you're really doing yourself a disservice if you don't take advantage of that stuff. And it's funny because my buddy David, who's watching us right now, he's, I think, scared to come on the show, but he's designing some loudspeaker stuff, and he's like way beyond what I can even speak intelligently about. So I'm like, I don't know, but I know who knows. Like, Bennett Prescott will know, and talk to him, or Luke from Coda, he'll know these. And I'm like, hey, here's his email, and I'll introduce him, and he's like, I don't know, man, I'm kind of like, I want to bother him. I'm like, dude, these guys are nerds, man. Like, this is all they want to do is talk to you about how their drivers are built. Like, that's their whole thing. You know what I mean? It's like, that's
sick. Yeah, it's so sick.
Like the best thing you can do is call me and ask me about coherence. I'm all about it. You know what I mean? You're not bothering me.
Carter, do you spend any time talking to other system techs that are on tour about methods you guys run at all?
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, I actually through the mentorship through Signal to Noise, a couple of the guys and I have gotten together and just connected to talk about them when we have something to talk about again. That's the one thing. Like, we can design all we want, but at the end of the day, you can look at it on paper and you can't fly it and tune it and whatever. So,
Yep.
you know,
Sweet holding
I get
pattern.
in
that
there
we're
and-
in.
yeah. So, I still get in there, every once in a while and, draw a new room or, import something in from SketchUp into Sound Vision or something and just mess around with PAs in there. Just, I don't know, just so I don't forget how to, where a shortcut is or something like that. But, so. Yeah, Mike keeps sending me stuff when you got a question.
Yeah, I keep sending him like revision after revision of I'm working on a design for a church down in Atlanta, and it's a melody rig, and I don't know a lot about the melody rig. I haven't really worked with it, so I said, "Hey, Carter, you know about melody?" He's like, "Yeah, I know about melody." I was like, "All right, 19 emails." Just so, Keith says on Facebook, he says, "I once emailed Kyle, and he answered and helped take care of the problem." And I got to tell you, Keith, you're doing better than we are because I don't think Kyle's ever emailed us back.
Yeah, he doesn't answer our group text. He just it doesn't. Yeah.
Except to say what time we're recording today.
not to make you guys feel bad, but like when I was doing I was on my first tour with a Midas console, and man, Kyle was just right there with me the whole time, every day, all day, like right there on text, and got me through that whole tour. Man, it was rad. But yeah,
Kyle was, because when I was a teenager, I wanted a Midas console like super bad, and so like you go on YouTube and you're like Midas Pro Series, and it's Kyle on there showing how to do all this stuff. So I knew who Kyle was when I was like 18 years old, man. So and then we were on a panel at AES one time, and I emailed him like, dude, you don't know who I am, but I'm going to be on a panel with you. I'm pretty stoked about it because I know you from the YouTubes, and
that's so cool.
It's a personal treat for me. You didn't answer, but.
He didn't.
Well, we got him. We got him on the show. So
yeah.
So there it is. Yeah,
that's funny.
It's funny. Carter mentioned trying to stay and practice some things. While we're in this time of of COVID and not touring and not doing shows and whatnot. I posed a question today where I was in the studio with some guys, and I was like, man, when we do go back to the real world, how much tolerance is there going to be for people being rusty? I mean, because people are going to be rusty on things, right? And things are going to take a little bit longer. Loading's going to take a little bit longer. Dialing in projection, dialing into PA, like those things. Like there's just going to be some natural rust to things, and how much are people going to be okay with that, and how quick that curve going to be to getting back to normal? I don't know. So,
that's a great.
I mean, that's what I spend all my time with is retaking courses. And like we were talking about Smaart 5 when I took the Smaart level 1 test, and I went through it and I learned a couple new things that I just didn't know were there, and I've been using it since. I think I bought my own version of Smaart 5 in 2005. So I've been using it for a long time, and there's still stuff I can learn about things. So any of these remedial courses that could seem remedial, man, there's always a little nugget that you're going to grab, and it just helps you not forget, especially if you don't know when you're going to actually lay your hands on something again. So, I mean, that
was the importance. Oh, sorry, Carter. That was the importance of Ryan's Mix 45 thing for me, was to just get your hands back on the console. And the first time that we did that, when we did that Mix 45 thing, it had been 3 or 4 months since I had my hands on my console. And you're like, wait, where's that menu? How do I patch that? I mean, it was a little bit scary how quickly you start to lose that sort of just muscle memory of where things are on these desks and where these settings are. And it was really a reality check for me to be like, oh my gosh, like you need to, spend more time on this. And so, I've been doing that more often just to kind of keep that fresh, but it's crazy how fast you lose it if you're not using it,
Yeah, and it's funny, actually, Brandon made a comment too, and the public ears might be more sensitive to loud levels, including your own. I thought about that as well, too. I'm very curious to see how quickly we reacclimate to what it's like to do a live show in terms of SPL levels, too. And that's a whole, it's a whole topic.
Well, I was actually thinking about that today, because one of my projects has been to get my show file with the band I'm working with, get it to sound big and fat and loud at a lower SPL. Usually, depending on the room, they're cruising at 90, 91, which is pretty low as rock bands go, right? But I was like, I wonder if I can get this on like 86, 87. Because at 86, 87, you can rock for 4 hours and you're not killing anybody's hearing or anything like that. And so, the rehearsal PA, I've been logging our rehearsals. And last night we were at 87 for a 15-minute A-weighted LEQ. And it sounds nice and full and punchy. And then I was like, if you went into your house and you put on a concert DVD and you sat on your couch, you would still not turn it up that loud. Like the context is so important here, because we'll go sit through 101A in an arena and be like, this is totally comfortable. If your TV is 20 dB less than that in your house, you're like, holy shit, the TV is so loud.
Yeah,
right?
Great point, dude. Like, yeah. That's why I'm so stoked to like get into this LEQ and the like the SPL stuff. Like, I mean, I was just about to get into that when all this stuff shut down.
Yeah.
I'm so stoked to I don't know. I'm super stoked to get
and we're emerging into when we come. It was funny because one of the things Jamie said on our podcast with him was, this was on the cusp of being extremely important for our industry, and now it's not at all important, right? But when we come back out, whenever that is, we're past that threshold now, and mind you, we're way behind. I mean, you guys that toured, we're way behind other countries on this stuff. It's the Wild West here. It is not the case in Europe. But the tool set that's available now, and the consciousness is there, and people. Apple Watch, right? I mean, you now have thousands of people in the arena with you whose watch is going to be saying, "Hey, you should go outside. It's too loud in here." So those are we have a new consciousness about that stuff, and so I mean, this whole idea of, hey, can I shave 3 dB off my mix level and still make it have the same impact? These are important things to be talking about, and that's actually something that we covered. We taught a SPL webinar. I did on was it yesterday? Tuesday, yesterday. And the topic of the whole webinar was SPL applications for front of house engineers. That's all. We spent an hour just on that, and how are we keeping tabs on this stuff? How do you mix around a dB speed limit and still have a mix that has impact and has dynamic range and sounds good, even though.
Which webinar is this?
It's a Rational Acoustics Zoom Lab. They're limited to 8. I'll send you all the info, man. I'll hook you up.
Please.
So Carter, well, speaking of that, from a system tech standpoint, how much of in your circle of system techs and the front of house engineers you work with, how much of that has been a talk of maybe what Europe has already been doing, what the US is going to need to be doing, and what is going to be the future of system techs roles and maybe monitoring SPL, both from a front to back ratio and also just from a safety standpoint? Has that been a discussion in your world at all?
You know what? Honestly, it hasn't been a lot of discussion about the legality of it anyway. And it's like, I've thought about it before, like who gets the fine. That's been a question that's been asked a few times. Like you said, Michael, it's depends where you are. And, that's another one of those things that obviously I got to talk to those venues about in the mornings is what's our SPL limit and where is it measured and how is it measured? And, but as far as our, no, not a whole lot. Most of what I know about that's what Michael's been talking about.
Well, I think I feel like it's going to be somewhat of the response. And maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but Michael and Carter, see what you think. But like, how much of this responsibility is going to be on the mix engineer versus the system tech, right? I mean, I almost feel like it's going to be a new role of a system tech to be kind of monitoring that and almost to be maybe more educated than the mix engineer because. I don't know. I mean, do you guys have opinions on that or thoughts on that? I mean,
I could dig into that all day. There's a couple things. I mean, first of all, ultimately, it's band management is going to be the one who's going to pay for that when the band gets fined, right? So they are ultimately the buck stops there. The operational, it's an operational issue, so it falls on the shoulders of the mix engineer to behave themselves. But I think the system tech has a very real role to play in that because spatial variance becomes a big thing. If you know that your show's 7 dB louder down front, what does that say about the limit and where it's measured? And those are all things we have to think about. But I think the other aspect of this is that our industry, we have a very real motivation to be proactive with this, because in a lot of countries, what we've seen is if the industry doesn't step forward and say, we're going to self-regulate, we're going to take care of this, we're going to do this in a way that makes sense, when the local or county or state government or federal government, God forbid, passes a law regulating this stuff, it's not going to be a good law. It's not going to make sense. Some of the laws that I see, anything that rational is involved with SPL sort of comes across my desk, and so we talk to a lot of people from all around the country and what their limits are and how they're enforced. And some of them are so technically meaningless that they're literally unenforceable. They literally don't. You can't even measure them because they don't have any meaning. So we need to head off that situation where we get strapped with a rule set that's ridiculous by being responsible about this stuff. And so we need to be very careful about making sure we have this professional vocabulary. So perfect example, and I talk about it in my SPL presentation that I gave. I'm sitting at front of house. Doors have opened up. It's way after sound check. The gentleman who runs the box office for the theater, who's the theater manager, comes up to me and says, "Hey, keep it under 95." And he goes back into the box office. That doesn't mean it, right? So, and I said, whoa, come back, And so I said, okay, you're not making a statement that I can't even comply. I can't make a good faith effort to comply with that because it doesn't mean anything. So we need to talk about, is it A-weighted? Is it C-weighted? Where are we measuring it from? Is it a 15-minute window? There are so many things that you need to tell me. And you can, because I said, look, I have the capacity to measure this and meter this and quantify this in any way imaginable that you could possibly think of. You name your terms, basically, right? You tell me what the rule is, and I'll put it up on that screen and we'll do it. But this has to be a meaningful statement, because otherwise the option is, Chris, something that you said, every time the neighbor down the road complains, you guys are getting fined. Well, that's not an appropriate way to handle this, right? You can't find somebody or give them legal action based on someone's feelings. That's not how this has to work. So it has to be objective. It has to be. So right. Our field has, we're not going to go down this road more than we have, but we have a very real impetus on our own people to be able to understand this topic. So speaking of that, actually terrible segue, not at all. Our man Kevin McCoy is here, mixer for the Hamilton and Peggy Tour. Kevin, I don't know if you.
This is one that I've been waiting to watch. But hello, I remember you from you guys did the interview with with
Adam Savage.
Adam Savage, that's right.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Thank you.
So Kevin, Chris, Hannah, I think, Pavan now. He front of house engineer for the Stars. Carly Rae Jepsen and Lizzo and
awesome.
I think I saw All American Rejects on that list. And Carter here, you probably heard him on the show talking with Jim Yak, system tech for Frampton most recently. So
he has a nice shoulder.
I do. It's usually this one.
It's nice to meet you all.
And
I was thinking that the box
beard
office
factor has increased.
The box office person who came out to talk to you about SPL had no idea who,
no,
they're the worst. That's the worst possible circumstance. Let me just stop you. I'm going to teach you about SPL you have a free 4 hours. Here's a printed out list of my Reddit posts. Read these, come back.
Well, so that's an important point though, right? So you got to have that dialogue in a productive way. When the house says that to you, how do you handle that interaction where they're saying something that doesn't make sense? They don't understand that. You can't belittle them. You can't talk down to them, but you do have to arrive at a productive conclusion to that, right? Because it's their house. It's their rules at the end of the day. So how do you handle that interaction? How do you give them the knowledge and the context they need to make that a meaningful statement? And what I said is, I said, look, I actually pulled up the SPL history timeline, and I said, these are all measuring this mic right now. These are all the different ways that we can interpret this data and measure it. And I said, you have to specify which one you're talking about. And then we can enforce that. And I said, I'd love to come in because they're 5 down, they're down the block here. I said, why don't we set up a time? I said, I'll come in, I'll sit down with you, and I'll sort of take you through some of these ideas. And then going forward, you can give an act something that they can abide by, and I can show you how to check it and how you can measure it. And, for a venue to buy a dedicated laptop and a copy of Smaart SPL, they're going to spend 3 figures now, which is nothing for a venue. So it's sort of, we have to be diplomatic with this, and it's important that we are, because the stubbornness is not going to end well for us. We're going to get shut down or fined or shut off, right? So, I spent a lot of time thinking about that. Is how do you? It's great, because when I'm sitting around the Thanksgiving dinner table with my extended family, and they say, "So what are you working on?" I say, "Oh, I'm working on software that monitors loudness at concerts," right? And they all go, "Okay, well, how loud's too loud?" They want a number.
Yeah.
Right. Because we know, like, weight is a number and gas mileage is.
I want a number too.
Right. So it doesn't. You can't just give somebody a number. So what I say is, well, we have to, because often what they're asking is what's unsafe, right? What's going to damage my hearing? And the answer is, it's not just about how loud; it's also about how loud for how long. Yeah. You have to look at it that way. And so that's the one sentence pitch, but it just illustrates to me how far we have to go in our understanding of these topics in order to get to a place where we're productive, where we're keeping people safe, where we're not bothering the neighbors, and we're still having a great show, because that has to be. It's not the buzzkill industry. We're not here to go around and start turn it down, Sonny. Like, with a proper understanding, with proper tools, you can have an awesome show, and you can preserve and protect the audience experience, which I think is really, really important. That's the whole reason we're there. But that doesn't mean people need to go home with damage, right? I mean, we have an obligation, a professional obligation. I believe we are in charge of these super powerful sound systems that have a very real ability to do physical, lasting damage to people.
Right.
And so we have a responsibility to not do that. And so, and it's sort of a new thing, because, we always think about, like Jamie said, Beatles at Shea Stadium in mid 60s. You couldn't hurt somebody with that. It's not possible. It can't get loud enough.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, every bit out of that thing. Probably.
Right. But that's what we were just talking about on Poppin's episode that y'all can hear when it comes out in a couple of weeks, is you're at the helm of this super powerful PA system, and you've got screaming teenagers clocking it at 105 in between songs. You have the ability to just steamroll them with the system. But that's not a good idea to do that. You're going to hurt people. So there's a lot of really interesting ethical considerations that come into that. Is it the audience's responsibility? Do they know they're putting themselves in a situation where they could do physical damage? Do we have to put disclaimers? What happens when the first person with an iWatch goes up to Live Nation and says, "I'm suing you because my iWatch says you're hurting me"? Yeah, then what? What do we do, right? Yeah. So it's an interesting thing, man.
Kevin, has that ever been a conversation for those who don't know, Kevin works in the theater world. Has that ever been a conversation with a sound designer or whoever else involved in the production? Have they ever actually talked in specific numbers, or have they just talked in relative terms in terms of what the feel and atmosphere on an SPL level they actually want?
Yeah, this is the first show that I've even had an SPL meter running during the show. And even for this, we didn't talk about it in terms of SPL to the audience. I think there is a discussion of that happening, when they're tuning the room and like looking to see how much SPL they can get to the individual audience members. But when it comes to mixing the show, it's just like, this part can be louder, this part can be quieter. Maybe there's discussion of marks on the board, but it's never really a matter of SPL discussion. I do, like I mentioned when I was on the podcast, I do look, now that I've mixed the show to the designers, where they want it, I do look at the meter myself just to like self-calibrate. I guess the other thing I wanted to say about this topic from a theater point of view is that usually we don't usually get it's too loud complaints. We get it's too quiet complaints. And one of the things this lives in my memory. This was several shows ago, so this is not Hamilton related, but I was at a venue in Florida, and I was with a show that was sort of notorious for being very quiet, and also most of the cast. Most of the characters were had accents, and so they were sort of notoriously difficult to understand. And one of the house people came sort of panicked to me backstage because I was the backstage person that night, and said, I can't hear. People can't hear the show." And I was like, "Can they not hear the show? Let's talk about this in a little bit more detail, because people can't hear the show tells me nothing. I need to know where they're sitting." That's like the first level of information. But then I was like, okay, he said they're in the balcony. And I said, okay, well, let's go listen. So we went up there to listen. This is an argument, by the way, for any theater producers that your A2 shouldn't have any cues backstage because the A2 needs to be able to go out and listen and deal with things like this. So make sure they don't have any cues. But we went up and listened, and I was standing next to this person who was the house sound technician, and he looked at me and said, "I can't hear anything." And I was like, if you can't hear anything, like, check your ears, because I'm getting a lot of information from the PA right now. If you want to talk about the intelligibility, I'll be happy to talk about that. But this isn't a loudness issue. We can turn up the show all you want, and it's not going to get better up here. Like, there's intelligibility issues in the PA that I'm going to go address with the system, but also the actors are speaking in accents, and like, we just need the audience to listen better. Like, there's a certain point at which you just have to say the audience needs to be engaged in their ears, and so that's usually so we don't usually get a lot of too loud complaints. Every now and then we will, but it's harder
That's such a cool point, man. I mean, a lot of times when people say turn it up, they don't mean they want it louder, they mean they can't understand it.
Right.
Intelligibility plays a super big role, and this is one of those research rabbit holes that I was kind of living in for months when I was working on the SPL documentation stuff. And it's really amazing how something like a little bit of distortion, it really, affects your perceived loudness, or how people will underestimate the loudness of a very clear, intelligible mix.
I was just going to ask that there's no number for it, right? Like there's no like defined measurement that I haven't heard about, right? That's this is how intelligible the sound is right now.
There's a couple. The most common one is either STI or what's STIPA or STIPA, speech transmission index, and it's literally it is imperfect, but what it attempts to do is characterize. It's a signal to noise characterization. You said it right. No, and it uses modulated. We're not going to get into it. It's very, very nerdy, but yes,
it's mostly used in public safety, right? So the regulations are public safety. So like airports and in hotels, in public spaces where the fire alarms have to announce, "Hey, evacuate the building." They have to meet that STIPA or whatever the different acronyms are for them, speech intelligibility, so that if there is an echoey lobby or a airport or whatever terminal that the from an emergency standpoint, but like those measurements and numbers wouldn't necessarily always translate to our field. And correct me if I'm wrong on that, Michael, but I mean, like it's still hard to translate there.
You do see it in if you work in integration, right? And someone's going to hire a company to install a new PA. One of the things they will specify is either STIPA or the other one, ALCONS, ALCONS, articulation, loss of consonants. They're metrics that attempt to characterize how intelligible a PA is. And so they might require it in a contract to have a certain STIPA rating or ALCONS rating. The problem is that they are not perfect, and there are ways to produce ridiculously unintelligible signals that will pass the test and score high, but when you listen to them, you're like, I have no idea what this person's saying. So that's something that we're actually looking at.
You mean we actually have to listen and not just look at the screen? And...
Well, it becomes a matter of how do you close that gap? Obviously, there is some really good motivation for being able to objectively characterize that stuff, and public safety is a really good argument for that. So that's something we're looking. Yes.
Oh,
please.
Sorry, don't mean to interrupt, but like, how much does expectation play into that? Like, I think you're saying like, there was an accent involved. Like, if you tell people like, yo, you're gonna listen to an Irish accent. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm biased because like, we kind of like know what Irish accents are going to be, but if you don't know what an Irish accent is going to sound like, I don't know, like, does expectation play into like intelligibility at all?
Absolutely. I think
there's another thing here too, is like, so think of, especially from like the club level days, where you have and you could get away with that vocal mostly being buried, or the artist not singing very well, because they know the songs. And if they went home that night and listened to the stupid video that they recorded all night long, they're like, I can't hear shit. It's like, well, no, but yet when the experience you had when you were there, you sang along that whole night because it's just the perception of what you actually heard versus what you're really hearing are two different things. So like if you're mixing something that you've never heard before, you might I don't know what the word is, you might accidentally or whatever put the vocal almost more way out in front than you should in a mix because you don't know what those words are and you're trying to make sure that everyone's hanging on every one of those words, when the reality is that 90% of the audience already knows every word and they don't actually need to hear every syllable. So it's maybe not a speech intelligibility. I don't know. I think there's
or vice versa is the bigger danger for theater is that we see the show 8 times a week, and we can easily bury the vocals because we know the vocals. So yeah, totally.
Well, that's the whole thing. I like to compare it to I studied Spanish for a while back, and I can track it when someone's speaking Spanish, but it exhausts me after a while. I literally have to listen harder, and it's a more fatiguing listening experience. And so that's a good analogy for a poor mix or a poorly tuned PA or a bad acoustic environment, where oftentimes the intelligibility is poor, and the people can still understand it, but they literally become fatigued from focusing like that. And so you can improve, people can be less stressed, right? Now, there's a sound design element to that, which I love. The movie The Social Network, there's a great scene when they're in the nightclub and he's talking to Justin Timberlake and they're yelling over each other, and you can understand what they're saying perfectly, but you have to listen a little bit harder because the way they mix the club music is actually mixed louder than the dialogue, but there's some really cool processing dynamic stuff where the dialogue sits down in there, and you get this feeling of being in the loud club and yelling like we've all done, but you can still understand it, but you had to kind of work for it. And that's a really brilliant sound design thing. And, I think Kevin, yeah. And I did that. Something we talked about with Shannon Slayton on his episode, where the audiences will very quickly adapt to their acoustic environment. Like you said, this is my acoustic reality for the next hour, right? And the example I always use is Book of Mormon. The PA, if you're on the orchestra level, the PA is above your head. It's firing basically straight down. But you go like, and then you just watch the show, right? And people aren't sitting there for 90 minutes going, all the sound's coming from above me. You do it at first, and then you're kind of into the show, right? So we're really tolerant of that stuff, as long as we don't. If you start moving that PA around during the show, then you're going to screw with people, right? But what I did, and it was like the only actual legit sound design I've ever done in my life, I worked on Les Mis, and that show for me, it's really long, and it's just like, it's tragic by design. So by the end, you're like, holy shit, all these people died when they come back at the end of the show, and you hear the people sing, right? All these people that died during the show come out, and you're like, holy cow, what an amazing loss of life has happened. There's just so many people that have been killed during this. It's amazing. I'm like, how do we have impact here, right? What can I do from a sound design? I muted the PA at that moment, because the whole 2 hours, the audience has been listening to they've been lazy. The sound has been delivered to their ears. And all of a sudden, when they're all lined up on the stage and they're singing, and there's 40 people up there, so you can do this, no mics. All of a sudden, your acoustic environment is it's a whiplash. You're totally in a different place, and everyone just leaning forward in their seats. And it's such a jarring transition, because I've literally forced them out of that acoustic environment that they were used to. And it just sort of like snaps people out of this thing. And it was you could feel it. It made that moment very palpable. And it was just, and now that's brute force sound design, right? Like it's you're bullying your audience around. I don't recommend doing that, but it worked. So yeah, I think all of these things they're really interrelated, and I think there's a ton of interesting discussions here that's another rabbit hole to go down. But yeah, that's pretty cool, man. The end. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Right? So,
sure, man. Yo, I dig that kind of stuff though. Like, especially like this little things that we can do, like to like really engage the audience and stuff. Not just on rock and roll, obviously, but like obviously with everything. But yeah.
No, I like to talk about where Kevin's going to place a vocal, or where you're going to place Carly Rae Jepsen's vocal in a mix is way different than where you would place the AC/DC lead vocal. If you put the AC/DC lead vocal that high on top of your mix, you'd be fired, and no one would want to be at that show, right? So it's all about the context is so important there, and the audience expectation, all that stuff, right? So
sure.
So Kevin, I'm curious now, and I wish I wish Hamilton would have been on Disney Plus prior to us talking to you, because then I would have seen it. Because I have not seen it in person. I've actually only seen the first 15 minutes. I'm gonna watch the whole thing. But hey, all right,
Totally fair. It's totally fair. I don't get paid for each view, so it's okay.
I know. But it made me think some more. So coupled with watching it, and then I plugged this on our last episode that came out today. Actually, there's a podcast called 20,000 Hertz. And they had talked with like some of the sound designers and stuff from Hamilton, and it made me appreciate it even more. So it made me think of a few more things for you. How different some of, I imagine, just the rap style cadence of the vocals, or the speech, if you will. How different was it mixing Hamilton, say, maybe from some of the other theatrical performances you've done, where I feel like some of the there's some more instrumentation to do with like beating on the tables and the chairs, and just more of that hip hop style, let's call it what it is, over your more traditional Broadway musical. What was that like? Did you have to adapt anything, or what was that like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like before Hamilton, the hardest show I had mixed was Motown, which was also a show that sort of moved quickly from song to song, but Hamilton doesn't move quickly from song to song. It's just all song, right? And so it's hard. It's tricky to mix because it's just continuous, but having it be all sung through or rapped through, and everything is with a beat, except for just very few. There's just a very few select parts that aren't with a beat. Actually helps because I know exactly what the performers are going to do. They have a little bit less flexibility, or like they just have a tendency to always sort of perform it the same way, which helps me because then I can anticipate exactly what they're going to do. So if anything, I feel like that made it like a little bit easier to mix. What it's still a hard show to mix, but it's just a little bit easier to mix because the rhythm and the beat provides consistency or predictability.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Wow, that was a fantastic answer, and it sounded like it was prepared. Actually, it was really good.
Oh, thanks. Actually, I think that's the first time anyone's really asked me that, so that's a great question.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, this is a 90-minute live stream.
Yeah, it also goes to show that we've talked about this almost ad nauseum. Now, we don't, for those who maybe think we prepare all this, we don't prepare for our episodes.
No homework.
We're
idiots. We're all idiots.
We like to just have it as a fluid conversation. We don't like to investigate. We don't like to take ourselves too seriously. But seriously, thank you all who, if anyone's hung out for this whole time, thank you. And for those who are checking us out in the past or in the future, or whatever you call it, I don't know.
In the future, Pat. And shout out to our man Jason Moore, front of house for Train, who accidentally sawed off his thumb with a table saw.
What?
And he started an Instagram. I sawed my thumb off, and it's pictures of his thumb and the pictures of the screenshots of his friends harassing him about now he's a pirate. He's taking it very well, but Jason, we're thinking of you, man, and it's he's treating it with the appropriate amount of hilarity. So we're going to stand with him in solidarity with our 9 fingers raised to the sky. So,
thank you all for hanging with us. I appreciate it. Thanks for check out more episodes. Check out those of you who are watching it in the Facebook group. Make sure you check out our Facebook group, Signal to Noise Podcast Facebook group, and we'll see you all soon.
Good night, everybody.